Welcome to INN's Student. INN Student is a platform for law students to come here and deliver a lecture on the topic of their choice. Today we have with us law student Manav Suthar. He is going to speak on environmental impact assessment. He is from KES Shri Jayantilal Patel College of Law. Without wasting further time, I would request Manav to commence with his lecture. Thank you.
We live in a world of rapid development and a population growth similar to it, accommodating such development. In a city such as Mumbai, you see multiple construction sites going on in one street. Whenever you move around the street, you see lots of pollution and the same dust flying around the street, and that you inhale. It does not look like a very hearty scene as well. When you compare it to a bigger project such as Mumbai Coastal Road project, there are much more scenarios that come to the pollution aspect. For such events, there needs to be a system of checks and balances, and that is EIA. As the name suggests, environmental impact assessment means a report for a particular project having a particular assessment in the same. Is there a system for checks and balances for such pollution rights? There is. There is indeed environmental impact assessment. As the name suggests, environmental impact assessment means a report that is necessary for all projects that are beyond the threshold limit of polluting means. Environmental impact assessment means, as the name suggests, it weighs on the impact a project carries on the environment. The Council of European Economic Committee in the directive to the member states highlights the objective of EIA in the following words. The effects of a project on the environment must be assessed in order to take account of the concerns to protect human health, to contribute by means of a better environment to the quality of life, to ensure maintenance of the diversity of species, and to maintain the reproductive capacity of the ecosystem as a basic resource of life. Now, this objective of EIA really covers a whole gist of it, that you need certain checks in order to not pollute the environment more than that is required so. And there should be some certain regulations which cannot be further avoided. Environmental impact assessment began in India in the 80s. There were certain political ambitions that did not let it carry forward, though it did start in the process of 80s, and then final notification came out in 1994. The environmental impact assessment notification came under the provisions of Section 3, Clause 1, which read as stating for the central government to take all such measures as it deems necessary or expedient for the purpose of protecting and improving the quality of the environment and preventing, control, and abating environmental pollution. This created guidelines for all the projects that were necessary to take going beyond the threshold limit of the same. When the final notification came in 1994, just like every significant statute that has its first draft with certain loopholes, it came with the same. There were certain necessities for projects that were kept, and such projects were finding loopholes to get out of the EIA process. There was also another provision for rapid EIA, which required for certain projects to just include a one season of data for the same EIA and go forward with the same. If the statutory authority believes that further EIA was not required, they would get out of the EIA and continue with their projects. Now, this created a lot of hassles for the environment as well, and we have seen multiple projects that were going on the polluting side rather than the protecting the environmental side. Then came the revolution in the environmental impact assessment of 2006, the notification of 2006, which included stringent applications of these provisions, where certain loopholes were banished, and a lot more stricter form of notification came out for the projects to follow up on so. Then it revolved around the impact that the project held spatially in terms of the space it held to the ecological adversity, meaning the problem should not be going out than a limit that has been set by the government. The prominent EIA notification 2006 had included both the levels of the government. It included the center as well as the state. Prior environmental clearance had been mandated for the same to go forward with the projects, and nobody could leave out the threshold limit once they occupy it. This included 4 steps, that was screening, scoping, public consultation, and appraisal. Coming again to the notification of 2006, one of the prominent features of the same was that it categorized the projects into 2 separate fields. One was A and the another was B. Project A, categorized under A segment, would be covered through the central authority, and project B would be covered with the state central authority. A requires clearance by Ministry of Environment and Forest, that is the central authority, on the recommendation of Expert Appraisal Committee, that would be EAC. On the other hand, the B projects require a State Environmental Impact Assessment Authority's clearance through the recommendation of the SEAC, that is a State Expert Appraisal Committee. Then it comes down to the categories that were held in the schedule of the notification of which projects are to be mandated by the EIA that require an EIA report. For the same, 39 categories under 8 heads were given. For example, if to name a few, mining of minerals and thermal power plants under mining extraction of natural resources and power generation head, coal washeries, a category under primary processing, cement plants under the head of materials production, coke oven plants and soda ash industry under materials processing, and so on to few, name to few, airport and highways under physical infrastructure including environmental service, building and construction projects under building, construction projects, area development projects, and townships. Now this included the categories that EIA stipulated. Now to the process of how EIA is being appraised. First process would be the screening. That is the very first aspect of it. And for this, only B categorized projects are to be submitted for the screening process. And as mentioned above, it is only for the SEAC to be confirmed by, that is the State Expert Appraisal Committee. Now SEAC examines the location and specificity and determines whether a broader EIA is required or not. If a broader EIA is not required, then it goes into the project B1. Coming to the first step of the EAC appraisal, EAC brings out screening, which is the very first step of the whole process of a fourfold process. Screening. Only B projects are to be given for the confirmation of screening, and SEAC, that is the State Expert Appraisal Committee, goes forward with the project location and the specificity of the project and determines whether additional EIA report is to be filed or not. Once approved, a lower dimensional project will not require any more process and the EIA will be approved. But although when it comes to further EIA, it classifies itself as a B1 project. Now B2 projects are not required for any more EIA process, but B1 goes into the next step, that is scoping. Now scoping is required for both A as well as B1. Now scoping, the provisional authorities go to the project sites and determine all the details, which is known as terms of reference, which is TOR. Terms of reference really puts out the guidelines for the particular project regarding the environmental concerns that it holds. Moving forward, once the scoping is done, they are to clarify all the guidelines that have been provided by the SEAC as well as EAC on the terms of reference that were provided for the project. Then comes, once they are done, there comes the process of public consultation. Now big projects such as Mumbai Coastal Road project, whether you take Delhi-Mumbai highway, those are two highways that we can mention right out of our mind. This hold an impact on a lot of local affected persons as well as people who hold their properties in the distinct area where the project is being developed. Now public consultation is for people who are affected by the same. Now they can be, for example, they can be the fishermen when it comes down to the Mumbai Coastal Road project. Public consultation, the third step. Local affected people and the people having a stake in environmental concerns do hold their opinions in front of a project. Now, these EIA reports are open for public access for a reason. They go forward and the people go forward and read those reports, and then they put out their concerns in the same to the statutory authorities respective. Not every project is up for public consultation, but when it comes down to the fact that certain people, certain classes of people might be affected, then public consultation is to be validated. For example, fishermen in the Mumbai Coastal Road project were specifically not approved of the same because the fishery grounds would have been affected, so were the coral reefs around it. That would affect the fertility of the fish and in turn creating a hassle for the fishermen to go out in deeper seas and get the fish. Now that is a public concern to accommodate further project. For the fourth step comes as appraisal. The acceptance by the SEAC or the EAC, whatever statutory authority is to be delivering it. And the rule is fortunately stipulated as 60 days. So within 60 days, an appraisal should be passed for the same project to be happening. Now, Once the EIA is passed, while the project is still going on, half-yearly reports are mandated whether they are accommodating the stipulated guidelines or not, whether the construction is going on in the process or not. Now, effects of EIA. Let's cover pre-EIA era, where I'll take one case study of Bhopal gas tragedy. Everybody saw how detrimental that whole tragedy was for people. That was lack of intervention and overlooking. The government did not do their part. There was the red tape authority, which was to be a great barrier for the chemical plants, did not affect. There were several ministries involved in which an inquiry was based, and they did not accommodate for the same. The plant was built nearby housing societies and bungalows that were around them. The plant workers itself were situated around the plant, that the most of the families were affected. The Bhopal railway station was mere 3 kilometers away from the plant itself. Now, this was a clear, horrendous approach to what safety measures were to be guided enough. Suitable safety mechanisms were missing, and to note, a similar project was declined by the government of Canada from the standpoint of safety features that it did not hold. Then why did government of India approve them? Because there was no lack of statutory authority to provide for the same. Coming to post-era, Mumbai Road Coastal Project. It consists of 400 pages long report considering ecological adversity, the spatial extent, the impact that it will hold on the environment, the green spaces that it has created, the reclamation of ground that it has disrupted and created more, the coral reefs, the aquatic environment as well, affected a lot of it. So in this whole pace, there needs to be a system of checks and balances which relocated several coral reefs to a different extent. There needs to be a system of checks and balances. Now, coming to the post effect of once the EIA notification was stipulated by the authorities, we look at a very major project that has been happened, Mumbai Coastal Road Project. Now, there were several setbacks for the environment when such a big project was to be happening. It was supposed to take over more reclaimed space. Mumbai is a archipelago, so it requires filling in spaces between those islands and reclaiming those lands to project a highway upon it. There was fisheries that was affected along with the aquatics, and green spaces were disrupted. Now, to combat this whole feature, the environmental aspect, additional green spaces was incorporated. Special bus routes were there for streamlined traffic. There was a reduction in traffic as well when the roads were launched, and there are several cycling tracks as well for the enjoyment of the public. Now, this combated the feature where several guidelines were set for particular mix of concrete was to be used for the production of the same, and several plants that were not to be disrupting the pollution around it. Several guidelines were followed for not creating nuisance in terms of construction while the roads were being constructed for the same. Now, there is a balance that has been stipulated by the authority, but so far it's not that effective for the environment to be suffering so much in the name of development. EIA tries to be a very baby step in front of the environmental protection we aim for. Thank you.
Manav, thank you very much, because I think what you spoke is what is going on today in the world by global warming. So all this is the environment which I think, now it's a balance has to be struck,
Yes,
whether development or destruction of environment. So there has to be a fine balance, and I think your topic was related to that particular aspect. So thank you very much. A small token from Hammurabi to you.
Thank you.